as humanity, we're so invested in technology is because we want life to be better. We want to improve our lives. We don't care who's at the top or how fast they climb or whatever. It's like we want all of these things to enrich our lives. Live like just life. Today, and those references are kind of like they fade into the background, or you never know when you're going to come up with that one thing that I was like, oh, that's what I need. Like that's the one thing I need right now.
こんにちは、空気デザインです。本日はですね、スペシャルゲストということで、私のですね、友人であり、メンターでもあるですね、方をお招きして、今回はお話を伺うことになっています。彼とはですね、過去仕事を何回かさせていただいたことがありまして、非常にですね、優れたクリエイティブディレクター、そして、業界で非常にですね、名の知れた有名なデザイナーということになりますので、いろいろ面白い話が聞けると思います。それでは、ご紹介します。エディ・シュバイザーです。Eddie? Hey. This is a little bit awkward situation and unusual, like talking in front of the camera and stuff like that. How long have you been in this industry right now?
I like to tell people I've been working with AI for 25 years.
25 years. AI?
AI for 25 years. Keep in mind that I was involved with a lot of R&D projects at Nike. Through my own studio, which is how I started working with AI. I think back then it was a little bit primitive compared to it is now, but it was still all about influencing what's coming next. How do we look into the deeper dive technology trends of what's coming?
How did you get yourself involved in AI in 25 years ago?
I mean, it was through Nike. A quick timeline breakdown, but went to art school, studied photography and graphic design. Leaving school, having more experience. I didn't want to go and get a job as a graphic designer because I was interested in illustration. I was interested in coding. I was interested in 3D. Like I didn't know at that time exactly what I wanted to do, but I was attracted to things that were happening in the graphic design space. And it was right at the transition from things going from handmade graphic design to things being made almost exclusively on a computer. So coming out of school and having those skills at the time set me apart from a lot of other graphic designers. And I partnered with two people from my school, created a new studio, and we started working within the action sports world.
I see.
That started, a little bit down the road. I started working with Nike.
And then how did you get involved into iPhone after that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the most important part is taking every opportunity as it comes to you and being young, not saying no. I think that was what I was in the right place at the right time. And opportunities, I would follow after them. I still to this day don't really know what Apple saw or how Apple found me, but it was literally like one of those calls that you get and the invitation to visit Apple in Cupertino to come and talk to their team that was being created there to work on an undisclosed project and being open to it. I didn't know it was going to happen. I talked to my partners. I said I was going to go and meet with Apple. Maybe this was going to be one of our new clients. Maybe. I didn't even know at that point. And came to Cupertino, met with the team. And it was quite clear they were not going to disclose any information about the projects that they wanted me to work on. It was more or less like looking at my background, looking at what I wanted to do and what I was currently doing. And it was clear that they didn't want to work on a contract basis. And that was the time that Apple was, offering me a job.
Like you ended up doing the hand model for the iPod Nano?
Sure. Yeah. iPad. So one of the interesting things when I was at Apple, was my connection to photography, art direction, and having that experience at Nike, like shooting all of these products, became natural change for me to then, instead of shooting shoes and shirts and apparel, I started doing all the photography for the Apple products. Again, literally being in the right place at the right time, I was on the shoot directing the shoot. I think it was iPod Nano, maybe one of them, or maybe it was iPod, what we call iPod Classic today, right. But it was iPod. And it was literally like one of those things where it's like, oh, we need a hand shot to show the physical size of it, and 4 or 5 people being in the room, and me being the one that's like, oh, that seems like it works pretty good. Like let's use Eddie to do the photography. At that time, I had no idea that I would become like the hand model for Apple for a good number of years.
That's a good one. Good one. Yeah. And then let's talk about what it felt like a part of the first iPhone launch. Like, how did it start?
I mean, we had been working behind the scenes. Everybody within the team knew that this product was coming. There was a small group even within the company that knew it was happening. So the company didn't really know it was happening, but there was, leading up to the day of release in New York at the Cube, which they created this beautiful retail space in New York. And Steve was going to be there to do the announcement. And it was basically a campaign leading up to it. It was just more of a like, it's coming type of vibe. And, during that time was like a huge monumental lift of number of people that were working on that project, getting it ready. We still didn't quite know it was going to be such a big thing. Like, we knew it was cool. We all had phones at that point. We didn't really know what it was going to unlock, in terms of how much time people are spending with their devices today. Like, I think that if we would have seen that, we would have been a little bit more, we had a lot more pressure on us.
Yeah, for sure.
To perform.
I still remember Steve did some first iPhone demonstration. Like, it's a phone, it's a camera, and it's an internet device, and like the 3 things into one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like, I still remember that presentation. Back then, it wasn't that big of the wave yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up until App Store, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that, it shows, again, like Apple's emphasis on quality. Like, we weren't ready to ship that product until it was dialed and it was right and it felt right. It was more taking the opportunity of integrating 3 different devices, 3 different use cases into one product.
So after you launched the iPhone, you moved to Android afterwards?
I stayed with Apple for 5 years. iPhone 2007, followed up by iMac and a number of product launches within that space. You can study all you want, and you can learn all the different skills, and you can think that you will work on these specific products, but honestly, taking advantage of the opportunities that are given to you and being in the right place at the right time. I met Andy Rubin, not knowing this was Andy Rubin, but seeing somebody else who had a touch device in a cafe, and I just started a conversation with him.
Oh,
I was like, being at Apple, all I knew was the iPhone. And then all of a sudden somebody else had another touchscreen device. And I was like interested, what is that device? Talking to him a little bit. He didn't even introduce himself as Andy Rubin, to be honest.
how did you even meet him?
Like, we were literally standing in a coffee shop line in Palo Alto, and he was on his device, and I'd never seen that physical device before. And I was, one of the people who was just like, what is that? And he was telling me, oh, this is an Android. This is like new. This is some new. He didn't even say new product. This is a product that we're working on. And then later on, afterwards, he had asked me what I was doing. He was like, you should come and meet me at my office. And so, like, a week or 2 later,
wow,
I show up at his office. Meanwhile, researching on my side of like, what is Android? And then realizing as I showed up to meet with him, that Android was just recently acquired by Google. So I wasn't going to the Android office, I was going to the Android office at Google.
I see.
The interesting part was like people thought I was, as a designer, doing the wrong thing, right? The number one question I got was like, why would you join Google, which is an engineering driven company at the time, as a designer?
Right.
And I think for myself, I saw the opportunity to like, you're surrounded by engineers who can execute. What they needed at the time was somebody who could create a vision of what this product should be to then go and execute. So to me, I was like, this is the right place. And it was kind of during that time where the conversation as a creative director or, as someone like myself was always trying to show the value of design. Probably previous to iPhone design was always applied at the end. It's like you go through this amazing process of defining what the product is and then it's like, oh, just make it look cool. And that was not about making it look cool. I was about making sure, like from the beginning to the end, that the product was, designed and intentional and did all the right things.
That product is good.
Yeah.
Nice. In a Google, like what I see is a lot of documentation and then pretty presentations to make a case, business case to the leadership so that you will be funded and stuff like that. But with AI, this culture is actually shifting back to its origin, where first demo is always a thing. Like the product manager right now making a vibe coded prototype for the demo purpose. Engineering do vibe coding, or maybe like AI assisted coding to the first demo. And then so we are no longer making this kind of Figma wireframe or like PRD and stuff like that. We just concept testing by prototyping and then basically making a demo to show what the concept feels like. This is the interesting bit that, How do you see AI impacting the product development and design?
The hardest place to be in terms of what the workflow looks like and what the process actually is, because one of the superpowers I've always felt as a designer is that you have the ability to have all these individual inputs, synthesize what all those inputs mean, and then communicate them to a wider group. So it's not just, can I do it? It's more that I can communicate to everybody about how it should be done. And so studying design is more about human communication and being somebody who has the skills to then take what is in your head and actually make it in physical reality or a digital prototype or whatever it be. I don't believe it's going to be replaced by AI so quickly. I think giving these tools to product managers and engineers, I think is a great thing in terms of a dialogue back and forth. Oh, here's what I was thinking, because it gives them the opportunity to do that. But if you still don't have that nexus of a designer in there realizing, like, is that the experience that we want to ship? Is that the product's behavior? Is that the right thing? You're going to go back to the world that I was talking about before, which is you're going to get to the place where you're about ready to ship and then you're asking a designer, just make it look pretty. But not having that like designer DNA within the product, it's going to show, right? It's going to show that, like, I have to step through 18 different menus to get what I want. I have to then, convince other people about where is the best button placement, and it might throw a wrench into it. It's like you don't just go and build a skyscraper. You come up with a blueprint, and you need to stick to that blueprint so it has a strong foundation, and you can build on top of that.
Right.
And right now we're just thinking that you can build a building midstream and not worry about what the foundation is.
I see. So what's your take on craft? So basically, like, anyone can come up with design right now. Some kind of design. At least like the generated one. Right. And then so design exploration, like, like kind of like exploring different design pattern, like UI based exploration, like those things are somehow like outsourced to AI. Right. So what is the actual responsibility designers should assume, and where the craft lies? What do you think?
I mean, going straight to, I feel like this is like a great analogy of when it's like moving from analog to the computer world, right? The computer will get it done faster, but you still need to come to the computer with some ideas in order to like figure them out. The computer's not going to figure it out for you. And I think it's the same way with AI. AI is not going to figure it out for you. If you want AI to do several different iterations so you can visually see them, or you can share them with your team about what the process is happening, that's great. But that's a long way around. And I think one of the other parts is AI is not a human living in our reality today, knowing what's trending, knowing what's cool, knowing what's happening in other cities or other countries, or what's happening in the fashion world, what's happening in architecture. Like, being exposed to all those different things changes how graphic design comes out on paper, right? And to AI not being a being in this reality necessarily, and not looking outside, but just micro focusing on, oh, I'm just doing design iterations, is gonna miss all those nuances, like all those patterns that we've designed that have come to be like the best patterns to follow within UX are going to be ignored because they're just going to be one of another thing. So I think having that intuition is definitely getting missing in the current models. You're still going to need to curate, right? You're still like do the hard work and do 100 iterations, but you're still going to have that decision point because you're only going to be able to ship one. I mean,
yeah, for sure. What do you say if you want to train that curation skill or that basically a design sense that you understand what is good, what is not good, what to be in there, what kind of cultural meme to be implemented into your craft? I think it's going to be a question of, okay, like what to be a resilient real designer in this era and time.
It reminds me of my time at Google, where joining Google, I was in I think an onboarding of about 200 people. My week of joining Google, I was the sole designer within that group. Lots of engineers, lots of product managers, lots of managers of managers. And shortly after, they started creating this role called visual designer. And I was highly offended. Because to me, a designer is a Renaissance person, right? Is like somebody who studies art history, who studies like human emotion, who studies communication, who studies our reaction to letter forms and languages and all these things. And visual design is like a thing, but we're communicators. And to say visual designer, I felt like it was like, oh, that's the person who like polishes like the final coat of, you know, whatever is on there. And I was definitely interested in the fact of now, you know, AI design is becoming a much tighter collaborator of mine. Before, when I would use these different models, I was always pushed to however the model was designed and it was grown and what data they used. And I didn't have an opportunity to really put like my own imprint on it, right? It felt generic. And everybody's model sort of felt that way. I think it was the same thing when we were creating the AI agent at Viv and Bixby and Siri. These agents didn't have much of a personality. They were always just like pretty middle of the road, like whatever. I think now the cool thing is that you can bring a lot of your personality. You can bring a lot of the way that you see the world, the way that you want to see the world, and start training your AI collaboration in a way that suits you. Mm-hmm. Like I can now start to have a style that's communicated through there. And as a designer, maybe I'm not the best illustrator, but I can collaborate with AI close enough now to say like, here's what I have in my brain. I don't have the physical skills maybe to draw and shade and do whatever I want specifically, but here's kind of what I want, and then work tightly with another illustrator to leapfrog instead of drawing on a whiteboard or sending a long email about, you know, what it is that you actually want. You create this new visual dialogue back and forth between people.
I see.
The digital realm moving forward, and what is the impact of this current AI frenzy, I'd say, let's call it. I mean, this week alone, to me, has been super interesting in terms of the news that came out. Sora is now being decided that OpenAI will no longer work on it. One of the, probably in my mind, one of the most expensive and one of the most potentially promising video generative products is not going to exist anymore after being touted for, I don't know, more than a year and a half, 2 years about being the next best thing. I mean, I think it's interesting. And then also at the same time is like Google's starting to announce, Google Stitch is now starting to claim ownership over the next UX tool that is going to put Figma and Adobe
I mean,
to
I
bed.
thought Google and Figma was friendly. Then like Google is now like homiciding
Yeah.
Figma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really as life-changing, earth-shattering news as it's played out to be? We'll see, because there's still a lot of, to me, like the current mode of AI is still a ton of cherry picking. I'm going to cherry pick all these individual use cases and they work for this thing. But if you try to make something that's slightly to the side, it just doesn't work. It doesn't, it doesn't follow, or it does fall apart and doesn't follow through with what you were hoping for. So at scale, no, but as a demo and as like somebody who's creating content for that, yeah, it's the most amazing thing ever, but still to be proven.
Those kind of news and then all the kind of technological improvements create a lot of uncertainty. Geopolitical things and also kind of technology and then career and financials and everything is in uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of following those AI news drives people crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think now is like the most important time to just like remember the basics. Remember the reason that we're so as humanity, we're so invested in technology is because we want life to be better. We want to improve our lives. We don't care who's at the top or how fast they climb or whatever. It's like we want all of these things to enrich our lives. And I question still, is this current wave actually doing that? Is it making our lives better? I don't know. I would argue like, robotic vacuums were more impactful to my life than the creation of agentic design.
That might be true. That might be true. That's interesting perspective.
Like I still, I would love somebody to clean my kitchen every day after, a long day of like making food, fold my clothes. Like there's all these things that we could potentially be changing about the human experience, but we're so focused like over here about who's doing it and how fast are they doing it and what's the result.
So how do you suggest like we should approach the technology, like especially like something expensive as AI technology, because there is a certain FOMO going on where like you jump on a bandwagon or left out, right? And also people attaching AI to their position, like job titles, like AI product designer, AI product manager,
for sure,
AI engineer, like those kind of things.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, you say that now, and I was like, I'm pretty sure on my website it says, I'm a creative director using artificial intelligence to make human experiences, to create human experiences, and I haven't changed that. I think it's been there for like 10 years plus, maybe. And now it feels like, I'm like, wow, now everybody's saying like artificial intelligence, but it seemed like a bit more of a unique thing like 10 years ago. But I think that what we should be focusing on is like, I would tell designers and anybody in the creative field that like, it's like studying art history before you get into drawing. It's like knowing color theory and knowing how humans respond to different art and different cultures. It's the same thing with AI. I think it's important to get into like, go deep in one space. Like, what is it that you wish, if you had a collaborator, right, that sat right next to you while you were doing your daily like design work or whatever, or there's one skill that you wish like, I wish I was a better illustrator. So take that one thing that you wish you were better at and find ways to augment that skill with an AI and try out some different AI experiences. Maybe creating videos might be the thing, creating images might be the thing, creating some illustration tools, but ultimately thinking about like how the why behind doing that, right? Why do I want to have this particular skill? What will it unlock for me? Because I don't think we need more generalists. We don't need people who can do everything. I think the reality is, do we really want engineers making marketing materials or, creating the storyline for the next movie. Probably not. We want people who are storytellers to get into that space, and I think we want more experts to work with. We don't want people who are just can do what you do. And to me it's like almost like the AI thing, right? It's like all these models used to be trained on all these unique things. If we said like you can train an AI model on everything, we would just get all these generic middle of the road models.
Right.
So if you're training a model on the images that are available on the internet, they're going to be ugly. That's just the reality of things, of the content that's on the internet. But if you did have like unique ways, and I actually think that the early days of some of these models that came out, maybe the humans were disfigured, maybe like the animals had like 4 eyes and 10 legs, but that showed a little bit of the creativity that was happening rather than trying to recreate. Like I think using AI as replacement is dangerous. Using AI to augment or to like take us further, that's super exciting. And I think that's one of the things that, with any technology that comes out, there's always going to be some nefarious players who use it for the wrong things.
I see.
Right.
I guess like, so you're saying like in form, you remember like the famous internet meme, like where like you generate the AI generate video, like a man eating pasta.
Yeah.
And then like the early day, like that pasta eating animation is so deformed and then kind of hilariously like not human.
Yeah.
Almost slimy. But now like it looks like a real human like eating pasta. Right. Kind of like nightmarish video generation back then was more creative than what it is today.
I mean, do we really need to use such an expensive and powerful technology to recreate somebody eating pasta, or should we go and photograph it with a camera instead? You know what I mean? It's like, why are we trying to recreate things that we already know how to make really well? Like, I think to me, the early parts were so creative because it was like, I never would have thought of like mashing up, like the way that it came out, I would have never came to that conclusion. But it is like the interpretation is creative instead of worrying so much about the output. And I think what happened is like those early days informed how the engineers are now attacking the model. We need to have more photographic references. We need to actually mimic reality. Whereas, I mean, if it was up to me, I would say go the opposite way. Right, find ways that it can stretch the imagination and come up with those unexpected. Because I think as a designer, as an artist, is like those happy accidents lead to just so many different breakthroughs instead of the like knowing exactly what you're going to get. And it's like I would say like 100 people will be like, yes, I want to see the guy, the real looking person eating pasta. But then you're always going to have 1 or 2 people that are like, yeah, no, that other one is pretty cool. And I think those are the people who are changing our world, right? Those are the people they see it in a different way. They see it as like an opportunity to think differently about those experiences.
Right.
Now you can have like a 1 or 2 person team create an amazing feature length film, and you don't require 10,000 people involved with rotoscoping and making sure that every frame looks perfect and all that stuff.
Yeah. Right now, intent to deliver something is cheaper and they're available to more people, right? And so in a way, everyone can engage some creativity work.
Yeah.
It's just like you are provided more tools to bridge the skill gap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do we?
But I think that, but like that leads to the point where like we're not going to see the result of that for another year, because now all of a sudden the idea is that if you now have the ability to do all of these things and you can do all of these things, what will the result of that be? The result of that will be, and I'm sure of it, a watering down of the products that are available on the market today, and it's going to have those that are like that are designed, that are considered, that do think about all those things stand out even more. So I think it's like it's dangerous in some ways because it will allow people to fail much faster.
Right.
But it's also going to start shining a light on all of the products that are doing it right. Because suddenly we're not going to move backwards. We're not all of a sudden going to accept something that is superior or inferior to the current product that we have, even if it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will be willing to they'll bite initially because it will be cheaper, it'll be less pain or whatever on their savings account, but they'll realize the gratification from that is going to be much lower.
I see.
And want to achieve something that's a higher quality product. So I mean, there's still going to be a market. There's still going to be a demand. Designers will still be involved. Is our craft going to change name? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. And I can just say, like, all the designers that I have worked with in the past and continue to work with, I would, if given the choice, I would much rather have them focus on their craft and their ideation and conceptual thinking before it comes to like their actual skills. Because we're going to be able to, if you have the great idea, we're going to be able to find people or use technologies to do that.
What is the best way to have a good idea? Right. This is a very nebulous question, but from your experience, what makes you have a better idea?
I think this always for me comes with two things: life experience and collaboration. I think life experience will give you going to new places, experiencing new products, like always be open and thinking about, well, that's a different way of thinking about it. Is it better? And analyzing like that kind of pro-con situation, but also just having experiences, like going to nice restaurants, traveling to different cultures, speaking different languages, doing different things over the weekend, and exposing yourself to more cultural things will enhance the stories that you have inherently to tell. The other part is like collaboration, right? I think that's one of the things that AI is not unlocking right now is you are collaborating with a technology. But what often happens is like the conversation itself is so focused and AI is so efficient, the conversation rarely goes in a completely opposite direction. It does not you do not have these, oh, by the way, this thing just happened. The doorbell just rang and this got delivered to my house. Or, somebody else just walked into the room. And so now there's a new dynamic happening. Like that doesn't happen. And that is what does lead to amazing ideas where something falls off the shelf and it breaks. And you're like, oh my God, that's the thing. That's the light bulb moment that I needed to like unlock a new idea.
I see. Or the improv.
Yeah, it's just like just life, right? Just having physical experiences, having, I think design, like I could walk into almost every designer's workspace 10 years ago, and on the walls would be covered with inspiration, works in progress, things that they love, things that they, color palettes that they want, their favorite photographs, like today, and those references are kind of like they fade into the background, or you never know when you're going to come up with that one thing that I was like, oh, that's what I need. Like that's the one thing I need right now.
Yeah. Surrounded by your favorite stuff is one way to stay focused and also inspired.
And when you say inspired, it's like I am not inspired by any of the dialogue that happens in the agentic experience today. The blank screens with if you could just take that aside for a second, let's say none of the rest of your desktop exists and you just have that one open thread. Think how narrow-minded that thread is. That thread is so narrow-minded that if you were to tell people that's your life experience, I would feel sad for that person because it's just so closed off to any other, just fun, exciting mishaps, random moments, whatever.
That is true.
I still don't see the value in creating something so fast. And like I said, we're not going to see the result of working in this crazy hyper speed up world until we hit a point where it's like, oh yeah, that's trash. Like that should have taken like 6 more months to make.
I think we can iterate faster, but ship slower still.
Yeah,
That's about right, maybe.
I would hope so. But I mean, I don't think that's the top of mind executive mind frame, right? Their mindset is now we can move faster. Now I can get rid of half of my team and move with a smaller team and move even faster. And I think the reality is you can, but I think there's going to be that constant triangle of like money, time, and quality. Can't have all three. Got to pick two. And right now it seems like we're talking about time and money.
I mean, those are important. Anyway, like only history can tell, and then we will, like, you know, at some point in the future, like we like look back current time, and then like what the shiesty moment in history, especially from design perspective, all the kind of crappy design and product are flooding the market and web, and then we look back with a shame, or
I think we look at it as like as a current opportunity for experimentation. But I wouldn't get too dug in and thinking like I need to learn this specific software or this specific workflow, because like we had just talked about, the news of this week is like all of those things are getting shaken up. I don't think the process is getting shaken up. We're compressing the process in some places, but diving too deep, I think people are going to be very disappointed in a year, right? If I would have thrown everything in, I'm all in on Sora and I'm creating all of my videos using Sora, and I don't know how to create videos anymore if Sora is not around. You just learned like a hard lesson of what skills do you have?
that is true.
You knew how to operate software.
You have survived like many different like shift and paradigm shift and then changes and also like ups and downs.
Sure.
I witnessed some of it, right?
Yeah.
But what do you say to those people who are still in a corporate job or kind of think, but and then kind of still trying to be creative and human?
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Focus on things that you're passionate about. Focus on things that you want to see in the world, experiences that you want to influence, and be open to opportunities. You never know where that opportunity will take you. You never know the next person you're going to meet, whether they're going to be a client, they're going to be a collaborator, they're going to be a friend, they're going to be that one spark of inspiration. I think being in the right time at the right place is super important. Don't think that like you have to always be seeking these like if I'm trying to get into the design world, like seeking jobs and sending my resume, it might be more efficient to collaborate with people. Go and have conversations, go and just live in those environments. If you're super passionate about architecture, go and visit the architecture itself. Like leave your computer, go to these places, go work for a day in a museum or an art gallery, and be influenced by life around you, and just see where those happenstance opportunities take you. Or
Got it.
Go
Awesome.
physical world.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you, Eddie, for your time.
Yeah. See you. Thank you.
というわけで皆さん、エディのインタビューいかがだったでしょうか。いろいろな話が聞けたと思うんですけれども、まあこれからもですね、エディと私がいろいろコラボレートすることもあると思いますので、これからもですね、空気デザインの動画をよろしくお願いします。それではまた次回の動画でお会いしましょう。それでは。